Welcome to our second installment in the road to Deadpool and Wolverine. We are going to be talking about Fox Marvel or Fox X-Men properties until we get to Deadpool and Wolverine on July 25th. I am super excited and I hope that you are as well. But again, we have to get through the journey to get to the goal at the end. And this is the week that is considered the labor of love. And we're going to be talking about X-Men The Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine, which honestly, after a second viewing, X-Men Origins Wolverine looks like a lot better film, whereas The Last Stand, I don't think my opinion's changed much at all. So we're going to go ahead and get started in this. And with me this week is Will Wilkins. Again, thank you, Will, for joining.
I hate you.
So, good point. Let's just go ahead and start off with this.
Well, look, I mean, going into it, I just have to freely admit this is not my best week for movies, okay? Because Sunday I'll be on The Real Study, and for that, at my own suggestion, because I'm like, what movies can we see for free that I haven't seen? For some reason, I thought, you know what? I want to punish myself with bad Sony Marvel movies. So I said, let's do Morbius and Madam Web if you haven't done them.
So this is a week of this is like a crucible for you this week.
This is my hair shirt for movies week. That's what it is. I've donned my hair shirt. It is torturing me, and I'm choosing to wear it.
Well, you know, it's almost funny. It's like if this were any sooner in the year, like we would have planned this around Easter, we could have done the whole Lent thing of like, you know, we're sacrificing good films and we're only going to watch bad films, which is funny because honestly, Morbius came to mind a number of times when I was going through X-Men The Last Stand. And it wasn't until I started pulling images for this episode that I realized. But let me go and give this premise. For those of you who are watching, or if you're watching afterward or you're listening, just be aware, it's not always just going to be me or somebody else. But I was pretty sure that this week, if Will wasn't with me, no one else probably was. And so I was prepared. Will knew this. Will joined at the last minute because on top of these movies, he decided to get dental work done.
I didn't decide. I had this scheduled. So this part of my mouth is numb.
I would have rather had a root canal. Yeah, I would have rather had a root canal than watch Last Stand. But here's the thing. This is always open to Nerd Initiative members. Like I had the link for this posted the night we ended the last episode, but I was pretty sure no one wanted to join for this episode. If they wanted to join for any of the episodes, I was pretty sure, because let's face it. Now, I don't know, maybe X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men, Dark Phoenix may have the same thing, but no. This is a tough two movies to get through. Not so much Origins Wolverine, but The Last Stand definitely. And I sent Will a video this morning of Kevin Smith of an interview that he did. And I thought it made me feel guilty for this evening because I was like, oh, this is a great idea. I should adopt this mentality. He's like, listen, I had a heart attack. I almost died. I've had, basically he's like, he went nuts. And he just lives every day looking at the positive in things. Like he's not going to sit down and talk about all of the bad things in a movie or everything that he doesn't like. He'd rather focus all the time on the stuff that he does like. And I'm like, man, why'd I have to see this today? When I'm getting ready to get in, I already knew, I already prepared. If you watch the last episode, I have words.
Well, then try and adopt that and attempt to reframe. I can honestly say that the last X-Men The Last Stand had what is not even arguably was an incredible pre-credit opening. It was strong, it was impressive, it was emotional, and it instantly had you invested, which is exactly what it needed to do.
Yeah. So let's go ahead before we're skirting around it. Let's go ahead and just let's talk about this. So the first movie we're going to talk about, of course, is X-Men The Last Stand. And honestly, with X-Men and X2, X-Men United, they were really coming in strong. And the marketing, I don't know if you remember this, the marketing for this movie was heavy.
Oh yeah,
Like
lots of cross promotion and everything.
you had two successful Marvel properties, because let's face it, Marvel Studios wasn't there yet. You've got Spider-Man movies and you've got X-Men movies, and it was almost as if you couldn't do wrong. But for both Sony and for Fox, they couldn't land the third film. And so X-Men Last Stand, a couple things that are already going against it. Now, I don't necessarily like the person. It's almost the same thing when you talk about the Avengers films with Joss Whedon. You don't like the person. You can still appreciate the film. Just if that person were to make anything else down the road, I probably would just completely steer clear of it. This movie was the one in the trilogy that was not made by Bryan Singer. Bryan Singer was tasked by Warner Brothers at the time to reimagine, I guess, Superman Returns. And so you had, what was it, Brandon Routh as Superman. They were very much trying to like recreate the Christopher Reeves, styling with him. They went noir with the film. And they incorporate a lot of different things into that. And it wasn't a good film. And I don't know if X-Men Last Stand would have been any better if he was involved with it, because it was kind of his thing. It's kind of like Michael Bay with Transformer films. At some point you just don't want them to continue making them. But yes, so 2006, X-Men The Last Stand is released in theaters. Before that, there was a major leak. This was one of the first major leaks on the internet, where the whole film, I think it was an incomplete version of the film, was released. And Will, I'm gonna admit it, I had downloaded it and I watched it on my iPod video.
Oh my gosh. Talk about dating yourself.
I mean, we're talking 2006. So if you remember, they had the iPods and the iPod Color, and then iPod Video came out. And I remember watching it on that, and I hoped it was a joke.
Is it going to get better? Is this somehow a fan edit?
So there are some. So let's start off with some of the good stuff. Okay, you've got more X-Men characters. You have more characters, whether they were depicted well or not, in this film. It was very much you could tell it was a culmination. I think they were trying to end the story there. And of course, the Last Stand insinuates that. You have this opening with Angel, which, hold on, let me just pull it, like, absolutely amazing. I absolutely loved this character. I was so looking forward to it. Ben Foster, young Ben Foster, that him as a kid, and then you have his dad, Worthington, I think was his name, trying to cure him. The whole focus was this curing of mutants, and he was the whole purpose of it. It was funny. We tried to watch this together last night on Senior, and Senior just wasn't working. Maybe it was just, it didn't want to play this film or whatever, but it was funny because I was going back to it, and I keep talking about how, we've talked about X-Men is very much a civil rights film, like its story. It's very much reminiscent to civil rights. I don't know if it's because I'm watching it this month and it's Pride Month or whatever. But when his dad walked in and he's got the razor and stuff and he's trying to cut the wings off, and his dad looks at him, he doesn't go, "What have you done?" He doesn't go, "What is all this?" He goes, "Not you."
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, whoa, that's like, and what do? They try to cure it. And it hit differently last night. I don't know what it was, but
yeah, that's something I didn't really even pick up on, but again, I was the exact same way. And I got to admit, I have not seen, I still haven't watched X-Men Origins Wolverine. So when we get to that point, that's all you.
Wait, have you ever watched it at all?
No. I have never watched, I have not watched X-Men Origins Wolverine. And there was an additional one after this as well, right? So sorry to get out of order here, but X-Men Origins Wolverine really is like Wolverine coming up, and then there is a separate Wolverine movie where things happen. I haven't seen either one of those. I will look, and I promise you, I will watch X-Men Origins Wolverine. I will submit myself to that pain just as you did, to make things even. But I
I'll be
haven't
honest
seen
with you.
them.
After watching it again just recently, I will say it's not that the movie's bad. It's just there's some parts that you kind of like it pulls you out, and it's hard to
Well,
kind of it's hard to think about them after the fact. Like, let's face it, Last Stand is a bad movie across the board, I believe. To the point of where the studio went back and said, let's undo it. And then they
oh
they
yeah.
they tried to redo the whole story, and they kind of did it just as bad. But
Well, I
X-Men
mean,
Origins Wolverine it has great bones. Has
there
great
are
bones.
some parts of whatchamacallit, of X-Men Last Stand that kind of can't be undone, right? Like the little bit of inconsistency with them going to meet a young Jean Grey. That's a little inconsistent, but we can set that aside. Totally speaking, however, there's this great opening, and then immediately after the credits, we find ourselves in what I can only describe, Tony, as what felt like a pantomime version of the action from the previous movies. There was something hollow, and I'm not saying it's not quite real because they're in the simulator room. It's because it just came off as corny. Even Logan, Wolverine,
Mhm.
is nothing like how he was in the first two films.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, that's how the tone was originally set. And talk about disingenuous. Can you bring the image back up again of this movie? The promotional materials, the poster, the pretty ballsy move to put Cyclops on there, don't you think?
Yeah, well, here's the other thing that kind of drove me nuts. If you think about this, um, Ben Foster's Angel with an X-Men suit on,
Mhm.
he is never with the X-Men at any point to be able to get a suit. I think he's still shirtless when he ends up at the end of the movie.
Mhm.
Like they built this is the first moment in a Marvel franchise. I think Sony did the second, where there was a disingenuous misleading through the promotional material. Now we know the Russo brothers did the whole, Hulk and Wakanda during the last battle in Infinity War, but I think that was more of a misdirect. But
You know,
Morbius
I don't even
teased
think it was a
Spider-Man with no Spider-Man,
oh yeah.
and X-Men The Last Stand teased Angel with the X-Men when he really was never with the X-Men.
Honestly speaking, though, I think we got to cut the Russos some slack, only because, one, in the promotional materials, we did see like the moment that Banner is recovering from having fallen on his face in the Hulkbuster outfit. But I also think that some of that original promotional material we saw was still before they really knew how the movie was ending, because there is an alternate sequence there, an alternate direction, an alternate story where instead of him going into the gamma lab and combining the brains with the brawn, instead he has that confrontational moment where it's like, Hulk, like, if you're going to do anything, we got to do it now. And
Yeah,
then suddenly he changes and then busts out of the suit, and then he suddenly goes, well, this is different, because he's made that merge. So showing
right.
Hulk, I don't think was a complete misdirect. I just think that they didn't quite have the story finished, and people are expecting to see the Hulk. But the stuff they did with Morbius is just inexcusable, and the things they did with this movie, I still, like, I was watching the movie, and as it's going and Scott goes back to the lake, I'm like, oh yeah, because I thought I was missing a movie in between, because I thought there was a moment where, like, did they really just straight up kill Cyclops? And not only they did it, but they did it off screen right after he's excited that his lady love has returned and is alive. And yeah, sure enough, they did that. And then when that scene came up, I'm like, oh yeah, it's this movie. Damn.
Well, you're with X2, they promised, so they teased at the end. We showed the image last week with the Phoenix
In the
shape
water.
in the water. You had Jean with this exponential power, and they immediately turned her into the villain. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know. This was in 2006. We're in 2024. We're almost 20 years out from this film. We're what, 18 years out.
Mhm.
And I am seeing similarities with a lot of my complaints with like Multiverse of Madness to this. It's almost like when you have, and I don't know if it's commonplace or what, and it seems like every time you have this female character that ends up with this extremely powerful mindset, they break them down mentally. And it just, I don't know. I just felt like Jean struggling to control her powers was a great idea, but the idea of her having like this duplicitous mentality or this duality in her mind, where she had like this evil version of herself, just did not set well with me. Also, in the first two films, there's never a time where Jean thinks that Magneto has a good idea in what he's doing. Like, you'd never see them in any form, and then all of a sudden her and her alter ego basically go off with him in the Brotherhood of Mutants. Like, it completely threw me off. um there's lots of mutants in this. Pyro was kind of, I liked Pyro in it. I loved, I don't know how I feel about Fraser being Beast.
I was going to bring that up because let's face facts here. Okay. This is one of those things where one form of art set the expectation and created something for another form of art, because they clearly cast him because he was the closest vocally to the voice actor that did Wolverine in the cartoon, or not Wolverine, pardon me, Beast in the cartoon.
Yeah.
Right. Because at least that's my opinion. At which point, then, they could have had anybody and just had him dub it, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And then I will say though, him as Hank McCoy as Beast, much better than Nicholas Holt in the First Class series of the era of X-Men. It just, I don't know. I felt like he was too cuddly looking in the younger versions, but honestly, I wasn't complaining. Now I am a Rogue fan, so I'm gonna say this. I did not like, I understood the idea that she was longing to lose her powers, like she was longing to lose that ability because she longed for human touch. I just don't feel like it was a lot of things where a lot of movies, when you get movies that go so far, these trilogies, they tell a story over time. And when they go into a third act or a third film like this, and they just completely like change gears on a character, it's just super surprising. I get that she wanted to be able to be close to Bobby. She wanted to be able to do to not have to worry about killing somebody when she wants to be intimate. But at the same time, like, it was, I don't know, it was just so out of left field for me. And I guess it's just because I have this, I don't want to be gatekeepy, but I have this long knowledge of the character in the comics and in the animated series, where I felt like she would have been tempted, but she would have never given into that idea. But again, she couldn't fly. She didn't have super strength. She really didn't have much going for her other than this curse of an ability that she had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
look, the whole thing is, and I don't want to spend a lot of time crapping on this movie, and I don't really feel there's any point getting to breaking it all. I mean, it's your show. You can do what you want. I know it's our show, whatever. But I mean, there's not a lot of substance to this film. To me, it really comes off like it was one of those things that we've heard about time and time again, where the actors come back and they say, the biggest problem with shooting this was there wasn't really a script. They would get pages and they were assembling what they thought was a good story and what they thought was an X-Men movie. And like you mentioned, they really tried to put a lot of ingredients into this stew, and it just left a bad taste in our mouth in the long run.
so one thing I will say, I liked Magneto in this film
Mm-hmm.
because Magneto is always going to be Magneto. He doesn't want anything to be a threat to mutant kind, and you can see him for that purpose. But he's focused on the powers and abilities in this film. But what I thought was amazing, how through the first two films, him and Mystique have been thick as thieves. The moment she loses her abilities and she basically becomes human, he drops her like a bad habit. Like,
So fast, and it's
there
so
was,
sad.
It was, and of course, how do they figure out where he's at and everything else? Like, you don't. It's one thing to drop your like second in command like that, but then not to think about the fact that she knows everything intimately about you. And what do we say about women scorned? Like, come on,
But
I
especially
completely understand.
considering she has to be broken out. She's had the information. She held back. They're like, "Okay, well, we're locking you up because you're just not giving us what we're looking for." I mean, it's just
Mhm.
so many. I don't know what they were thinking. I really don't. I mean, and the only thing good that comes of this is that it at least this movie helps kind of sets the stage for Days of Future Past in the
Yeah.
fact that we see just how much Logan can handle
Mhm.
and how much his regenerative abilities or how strong they are, right? With the
Yeah.
whole him facing down Jean and her just blasting the living heck out of him. It set that. So I mean, there are little bits of this movie that are beneficial, okay? And
Mhm.
much in the same way that I I have not the Venom movies are great if you go into them thinking that they are a camp film, okay? That they're
Yeah.
campy. Especially like the second one had me rolling the minute they see Cletus Cassidy and the Venom symbiote goes, "Oh, it's a red one. Screw it. We got to get out of here." It's just like
Yeah.
that's not what you want to hear at that moment. So approaching it that way, it's great. But as completists, we do need to see them. So to which you say, why haven't you seen X-Men Origins Wolverine? That was because I had read so many reviews, and after my wife was exceptionally displeased with seeing X-Men: The Last Stand with me, that's another reason. If your spouse isn't going to buy into it, you're not going to do it either. So that was the case, man. That's why I still haven't seen it. I should. I don't know why. I sit there and I'll watch bad movies intentionally, so I should. I shouldn't have said that either. I apologize.
Yep.
But
No,
but
it's okay.
I mean, like, give me one more good thing from X-Men: The Last Stand. Look, I pulled the whole Days of Future Past narrative out of a hat. What do you got?
Okay, so starting from the beginning, I liked Angel. I liked seeing Angel. I thought it was a really great premise for a storyline that just didn't exist in the movie at all. It was just like, okay, we promoted him. Let's go ahead and just tease him at the beginning and then we'll throw him at the end. Um, so I liked what I saw of him. I would have loved it would have been a much better story if there would have been more of him involved in it.
Mhm.
Um, the the opening with him and Magneto, like it made sense. I mean, when you finally get to X-Men First Class, you know that Charles and Eric both approach the mutants a lot, through their time. Now they're much older, in that moment, but it kind of tracks a little bit when you think about, X Origins Wolverine. You also see the recruitment of Scott. Um, I think for me, there was a lot of mutants. There were a lot of campy things that this happened that turned me off. But the premise would have been good if they would have just focused on one plot. Like there's this thing that could get rid of your mutant abilities. Let's focus on that. Oh, but let's focus on Phoenix, and we don't have enough time for that. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I have nothing else good to say.
Fair enough, man. I
I
can't I
was
can't
trying. I was trying. I thought the more I talked about the film, I like the thing X2. We had Easter eggs and little nuggets of a bigger world. You had, was it Omega Red, and you had Alpha Flight mentioned in something, and you had Wade Wilson mentioned, and then you get to X, the Last Stand. You have this convoluted story where like there were so many things that just became spectacle. They were more focused on spectacle than they were on anything else. Because if you go back to X-Men and X-Men, the Last Stand, or I'm sorry, X-Men X2
X-Men
United,
United, yeah.
yeah, they weren't heavily like focused on action and giant cinematics. there was this simple thing, the Bamfs, like that one scene in the White House was fantastic. And then you had a lot of dialogue and help like fleshing out the characters. And there's a lot more of like this we saw what happened when they went to Bobby's house, and how his brother, turned him in. And you have this altercation with the police. And then you have, Alkali Lake was a great like moment, but it was all small and contained. And then this movie, they're moving bridges and everything else. And there was less commentary on like the way the world viewed them than there is this infighting and this struggle within themselves. And they couldn't even, control themselves. And I feel like when we got to the point where Wolverine had to make the decision about how to stop Jean, it wasn't really earned. I don't think we gotten to that point where like it really like drew me in. I think the last moment in this film where I was like emotionally devastated was with Xavier's death.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. And you see him kind of like wave him off, like don't. And he let it happen. And I'm sitting there like crap. And then of course the end credit scene for The Last Stand, where, that payoff at the beginning when he's talking about moving the consciousnesses from one person to another. I was like, okay, they figured Patrick Stewart's getting old, and
Mm-hmm.
they're probably thinking like if we can keep pumping these movies out, and if this movie does well, we can recast him to be somebody else. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Good. Little did they know at that time that many, many years in the future, we would once again see Xavier well, actually, we did a few times. Pardon me. We saw
Yeah.
in Days of Future Past, but also most recently in Multiverse of Madness. And God bless Patrick Stewart. He is a national treasure for whatever continent he's on at the time.
Oh, I think I loved him for Star Trek and for X-Men. But I think the moment that I saw him post, I think it was on Instagram, where he was dressed up like a lobster in a bathtub, I was just like, the man can do no wrong. But yeah, so ultimately, I don't think there's much to say. I will say one more positive thing. That opening where we saw the danger room where they were trying, and you see like the Sentinel head. I really was hoping for more.
That was the only good moment. That was the only good moment, dude.
That was a cool like.
Well, okay, and plus we got to see the Cannonball Express.
Yes.
Yeah, not quite the way we expected it, but when he was tossed, great, that worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was the only good thing, because everything else about it, and maybe I'm just picking up what Jackman was trying to present, which is, Wolverine just isn't into this. He does not think these mutants are ready for the fight, and so he's constantly almost patronizing it in a way. So maybe I was picking up on that, but it was not especially after the traumatic opening and the impressive opening, it is not the way they should have continued with that film. Like, honestly speaking, I think last night when we were trying to watch it, I ended up running my own copy of it, and I mean, it took everything in me to continue after Storm and Wolverine go back to the lake. I mean, like, at that moment, I'm just like, I can't. Okay, I'm going to, and I did, and I hate.
Oh yeah, the glass is just kind of hovering.
Yes, I mean, because still, I mean, it's like, seriously, did you really just kill Scott? And that's the other reason why I hated the movie the first time, because I kept waiting the entire movie for him to return. I'm like, no, we're misinterpreting it. She did something, granted, there was the whole, cheeks rippling thing in the moment of panic that he had. So something happened, but I for some reason I always thought he was going to come back, and he did not, and I was sad.
Yeah, true. So yeah, so let's just end it there.
Okay.
We're at 30 minutes. We found a way to talk about this movie for 30 minutes. Let's go ahead and move over to X-Men Origins Wolverine. A movie that I can definitely talk more about. You can ask questions or whatever. I realize, you haven't seen this yet. I will recommend seeing it. There are just a couple things that you kind of need to be aware of, and I'll talk about the things to just kind of be prepared for, because they will kind of pull you out. So first of all, we have this movie going back and basically telling us the origin story for Wolverine, one that if you're in the comic books, you know it pretty well. They kind of go back even farther. So we've got a young Logan, sick in bed. He's a little boy, and he's got a friend that's with him, Victor, and basically he is, um, uh, he's sick, and all of a sudden there's like a banging on the door, and this is like Victorian era, like this is
Right.
like
This is
long,
just
long time ago.
which at least does tag in well with one of the things that they said in the original X-Men movie, where it's, they said
You don't know
we
how
don't
old he
really know
is.
with his healing
Yeah.
factor, we don't really know how old this guy is.
And that's a very good point. So he find basically in the circumstance of everything. Of course, he's got bone claws because he doesn't have the adamantium yet. He's a sick kid, and this guy breaks into his house and shoots and kills his father. And the guy comes in, and the claws come out, and he stabs the guy and kills the guy. But as he's dying, he tells this young little boy that, I'm your dad. And this is the guy who is also the father of this boy, Victor. And they find out they're brothers. And of course, he runs out in the distance, and, the mother is terrified of him. Like, what are you? And he runs away in the woods. And we have this understanding between the two of them that they are both brothers, and they go running off. And one of the best, I think, intros for a credits for opening credits is in this film. I by far I love it. It tells you enough of a story to get you up to the point of where we need to catch up, however long, like 100 years or more. And it's literally Logan and Victor, who Victor's Sabretooth. Um, they're going through eras in different wars, fighting and killing people. And you see them like on one battleground after another battleground on the it was I think it was like I think the last one was like them on the beach at Normandy, and they're just going, and you see like Victor like pouncing like an animal, like going after and like slashing people because he's got these long nails in his on his hands. And Logan's going in, of course they're getting shot, and they just keep going. And it finally gets to the point where you kind of see that Victor enjoys killing and
Hmm.
enjoys murder. That's pretty much all it is.
The term you're looking
And
for is
Logan
sociopath.
obviously has regret about it. What?
The term you're looking for is sociopath, sir.
Yeah. And so it gets to the point where I think they're in Vietnam, and Victor's about to do something unseemly to a Vietnamese girl. And these guys try to stop him. He ends up killing like a officer, like a high in command officer. And then these guys like go, and of course Logan going to defend his brother, stands there. He's got his bone claws out, and they're both. And so they get sentenced to a firing squad. And my favorite, I think one of my favorite things is like these two guys who constantly have healing factor that have lived, over 100 years now. And Victor's just like, they're tied to the pole and they're about to get executed. And literally, Victor's like, wake me up when it's over. And, and then the next thing you find, William Stryker, who we saw in X2, is there while they're chained in a cell because their execution was completed, but they're still alive. And so he offers them a job. And that's where you see like, so you've got Ryan Reynolds as a Wade Wilson that's literally doesn't use guns. He just has his katanas, which if you've seen Deadpool 2, you know that the whole scene where Cable is shooting at Deadpool and he's using his katanas to knock the bullets, and it doesn't work. He's just constantly riddled with bullets. So it's a nod to X-Men Origins Wolverine, where in one scene they're going in looking for adamantium, and Wade is just using his katanas to like split bullets and like kill two people at the same time and everything else. And it literally, it's comical because you've got all these different guys who you'll see later on that are part of this task force with William Stryker. And of
Hmm.
course, going after adamantium, he's willing to kill people to get it. And Logan's like, I'm done. And he goes away.
Another one of those inconsistencies, the inconvenient inconsistency, which by the way, if anybody is even guessing, and as coy mentioned, like a long time ago, he called it that basically Deadpool would be killing off the Fox universe.
Mhm.
I think what we'll see in Deadpool and Wolverine will be something that will at least make it okay for us, all of these inconsistencies that occur across all these movies
Yeah.
that create this messed up history that doesn't track.
Yeah. So, without me going any further into the
Oh, that's
storyline,
the
because I
reason.
do want there to be
That's the
some
reason
things
why.
for you to enjoy.
That's the reason why I now realize I know everything you're talking about. I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't seen the movie. Thank you, the movie spoiler. Because
So
all I did was I read, because I didn't go see it. All I did was read about it, and I'm like, okay, I'm
so
not missing much.
so let's be honest. The storyline had some great things in it, okay? Um, the way that he gets volunteered into, you know, the Weapon X program, I liked it. Um, I liked the battles between him and Victor. I think that was they had him and Liv Schreiber had really good
Oh wait.
like chemistry with each other. Um, the premise of how he escaped, he's trying to figure things out, and he's on this mission were great. There were the storyline is not bad in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
There are just a couple things that kind of set me off, and I'll explain it real quick so you don't have to worry. First point of contradiction for me that bothered me was they didn't focus on continuity with the previous X-Men films. This literally should have happened in a different universe, basically, at this point. First thing, the dog tags that they give Wolverine or Logan before he is put into the adamantium or he's infused with adamantium looks nothing like the dog tags in the first two or three movies. He gets rid of them in the third second one. So the
Mm-hmm.
first two movies, where literally it was like something that got broken off and he was given, they literally had this CGI focus on this stamp that stamped the thing, and it was a more modern, rounded dog tag, which that took me out of it. Second thing, when he finally like gets a chance to look at his claws and kind of see them for the first time, they went heavy on the CGI, but not in a good way. When I watched it, what was it? Not last night, but the night before with my wife and my kid. I looked at my wife and I said, I now know why these claws bother me. He's in the bathroom and he's looking at me. He's like kind of like making them like spark by touching them with each other. It literally reminds me of the toy or of the cartoon gun from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like
It has a very cartoony
it
look.
looks like someone drew them for it. Just wait. You got to promise me you're going to watch this film.
I'm promise. I will continue to put myself through, as the Mystery Science 3000 crew had coined for one particular movie. I will put myself through the deep hurting. I will do it.
But do it next week when you have some time and you can get your sanity back after this this week. But the claws are extremely cartoonish for CGI. Like there's a couple moments where, like, again, this movie was leaked. There was an unedited leak where like the rendering for the helicopter and stuff wasn't that great. Funny thing, it didn't get much better when they got into post-production. Like it wasn't great. They again, they leaned too heavily on the CGI. And I think this is something that even Marvel Studios needs to learn from. It's better if you focus more on practical effects, and then on those moments where you have to do the CGI, focus on just doing that really well.
Mm-hmm.
But again, movies in the 2000s. This was 2009, so 3 years after X-Men: The Last Stand, and so yeah, a lot of CGI heavy stuff going on. I mean, we're talking about like the Michael Bay movies. We're talking about all this other stuff, so it makes sense. Then we get into one of the cameos. We have Remy LeBeau, Gambit, appears on screen, played by Taylor Kitsch, who I feel like I was again talking to my wife Rebecca last night or the other night, and I was like, I think that this was the movie that kind of spurned the end of his career. Like you had him in X-Men Origins Wolverine, you had him in John Carter, you had him in Battleship. Like,
Mm.
he's done pretty good with some of the military movies, but, like, I think it didn't go so well. His character took me out of the story. I feel like they were just trying to make up for the fact that they just did Rogue wrong, that they just did him wrong on purpose too. So
Well, I
you got
mean,
that.
dude, you can't even talk about getting things wrong without, of all the characters in the world, to take away their mouth. Deadpool?
Oh yeah, we're
No.
not even there yet. So did you see the video that was since we're getting close to Deadpool and Wolverine, did you see the video that's been going around with Ryan Reynolds? Where he was interviewed and talked about him doing that role?
I did catch something about it, but I honestly I did not retain any of it other than he was almost kind of like forced to
Blackmail.
play it. He was
Yeah.
blackmailed to do the role. Okay.
So he had been on Fox for a while trying to get Deadpool going. Like, we know he's the driving force. Though it was said that somebody, we don't know who, leaked the test footage for Deadpool.
Hi,
It
Rob.
was it was absolutely Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds, I think, has admitted at this point because it was a huge success. Besides, it doesn't even matter. The Fox doesn't exist the way it did anymore. It's now, under Disney. But he was campaigning hard for Deadpool. They send him like the explanation of what they were planning to do for the film, and he was talking to the executives, and he's like, listen, I don't think you understand. There's going to be a lot of fans that are going to be upset, extremely upset, with the way you've depicted Wade Wilson and Deadpool. And they said, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. We can always find somebody else to play the character. And so if he had ever hoped to play Deadpool anywhere down the road, he had to play it in this role. And
Merc without a mouth and laser eyes. Okay.
they gave him a little bit of a mouth in the looking in the past with him with Stryker's team. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. If anybody's going to, like, um was it genetically alter Wade Wilson, it would be an improvement to make his mouth shut. Um I mean, let's face it. Plus, I don't think Fox was ready to go down that road with them yet.
Mm-mm.
But the idea of them splicing all of these different like X genes in him, they gave him the retractable blades. They took his katanas and put them in him, which makes no sense, because if your arm can bend and your blades are made of adamantium, where in the world is that katana in your body? Like,
I did,
where?
don't even get started because even Wolverine's claws don't make any sense. Because if they come out to here, that means they retract down to here. How do they reside anywhere within here while still having bones for your freaking
Well,
arm?
because you okay. So in X-Men Origins Wolverine, when he's just gone through the process and they're basically going to wipe his mind or whatever, his claws come out for the first time, and you actually see on an X-ray this is a cool part. You actually see on an X-ray how the claws are coming out of his arm, and literally the blades are up here in his forearm, and they're moving the small bones in his wrist. So not only is he having like the pain of the blades piercing his skin every time he pulls them out, but they're constantly dislocating all of the small bones in his wrist to come out, which I thought was actually ingenious. Like I said, there are good bones in this film. There are just some small things that take him out completely, that take you out of the story completely.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
so
That adds another, because already, like from the original X-Men movie, I was already traumatized to think, much in the same way that a character was completely reframed for me in Spider-Man Far From Home. I'll get there. But it was, to me, to discover that every time you're enabling one of your most heroic tools, your claws, that every time he does that, it hurts. Now hearing that it's actually moving bone as well, which anyone that's had a broken bone or anything can tell you, that's not comfortable. That's not good. Okay.
oh yeah.
That's horrific. And it's much in the same way of Far From Home that I never conceived this, because I always took into effect the healing factor. Okay, well, Spider-Man has an accelerated healing factor, not heating factor. Well, I know he may heat a room. I don't know. But when Peter is reacting when he's getting stitched and he's and Happy says, "Oh, what, don't you have like superpowers?" He's like, "Yeah, but it still hurts." That so redefined the character for me. Even though I'm sure Steve Rogers, all of them probably it's the same way. Jessica Jones, they all feel pain. So that like the things that they do, that's an even greater sacrifice than I ever conceptualized because as an avid Spider-Man comic reader, I have seen Peter Parker get beat to hell time and time and time again. And
Mhm.
just knowing that every blow feels exactly like if I were to get hit. The only thing that he's getting is an accelerated recovery time. That's it. That really it's amazing that my mind never made that connection, but it's also it's amazing that movies can actually reframe a character you've known for practically your entire life. So just knowing they do that stuff, I know fictional characters, but knowing that they extend that sacrifice even more is just kind of amazing to me.
Yeah, I mean, the infusing the adamantium was a really good it was a really good scene. There was a couple things that kind of just set me off, like the dog tag. It's like those small things. Here's a picture of the animated CGI claws, and they kind of look okay until you start seeing them move. I wish I could pull video up real quick
No, that's not
to show,
that's
but
well, even there, the shading isn't right. You can tell it's not a true metal or reflective surface. It just doesn't look natural. Well, I mean, it looks even more unnatural. Oh, by the way, too, I apologize. Uh, Days of Future Past did adequately reset things because he
yep.
meets a younger striker in that one, and they're able to get Wolverine that much sooner because, the Magneto of that time, the 60s or 70s or whenever it was, attached him to the concrete with the rebar, messed up, and
Oh yeah.
drowned him. So okay. I just want to at least set that I did understand that. Okay.
Now, what I will say this, with the X-Men, like the first class era of X-Men movies, what it really did for me was when you get to X2 and you have Magneto and Xavier talking about Wolverine, about Logan, and about how it's like, have you told him yet? Like it makes sense because they knew him from when they first approached people in first class, and then in Days of Future Past, they worked with him. Like he was aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like they knew of Stryker at that point because of all of the stuff that was going on. So it was definitely interesting. And at the same time, like I wonder because there was that past and future Charles Xavier like explanation, like Xavier had to have known stuff about, the whole time up leading up to that stuff for that. So
Fair enough.
but so that the CGI clause, the of course this guy here, hold on a second. They did him wrong.
Big time.
And of course they gave him the star look around his eyes later on in the film because his eyes he had the black around his eyes, specifically for the reason that he had like Scott's heat vision at that, or his laser vision at that point. So yeah.
That's just, man. I think that was part of the reason why I also avoided it because when I heard what that movie's version of Deadpool was, I was like, no.
But it
No.
allowed us to have a good retcon in Deadpool 2 when he goes back in time to fix it.
That it
So,
did. Yeah, it's just just resetting the timeline.
yep. But I feel like this is as far as I want to go with talking about these films. Like, come on. Um, I would recommend if anybody's don't watch X-Men Last Stand unless you want to be, completely satisfied when they retcon the whole thing with Days of Future Past. You kind of appreciate what happens in Days of Future Past for that. And then X-Men Origins Wolverine is a decent film. It's just not a great film. And I enjoy it, and I enjoyed it again. And I do recommend people, if you are a Wolverine fan, you will like parts of it. I will also say this: the movie allowed for us to have probably one of the better Marvel video games at that time. The X-Men Origins Wolverine video game was pretty awesome. And it was pretty
so there is
it
one
was
good thing
pretty
that came out of it.
intense. Like it was a mature film or a mature game. Because it was definitely gory, and you had berserk mode and stuff like that. And it tried to make the storyline better, but not so much. But definitely, you know, it was a game worth playing. I played on the Xbox 360, I think it was. But yeah, thankfully, guys, onward, upward. We're gonna be reviewing better films. So let me just pull up my schedule here real quick because I know I've got
It's like
everything planned out.
Mm-hmm.
Next week. Next week we're doing 2 films again, and then the 19th we're going to be doing 1 film. So this next week, the 12th, will be X-Men First Class, and we'll be doing the Wolverine, which are better films than these 2 films completely. And in fact, I really liked X-Men First Class. I actually liked what they did with it. I enjoyed it, and Kevin Bacon wasn't bad.
And that's the reason why you have to see the Wolverine, because the post-credit sequence of the Wolverine kind
leads
of
to Days of Future Past.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and then what we're going to be doing. So to give you guys a little bit heads up, so next week is First Class and Wolverine. Then the next week will be Days of Future Past by itself, because I feel like it'll be worth talking. And besides, we'll be talking about that film and the Rogue Cut. If you didn't know, they went back and they actually did a different version of Days of Future Past.
I think I own that. I think I own that. I think I own
both.
I think I'll have to look back, but I know I watched it and I'm like, oh wow, this is actually, I already like that movie and this is better.
Yeah. So there's the Rogue Putt. Then the next week, the 26th, we'll be doing Logan. Which if you don't know, there's 2 versions of that film. They're identical, except for the fact that one is in black and white. It's the noir version. Because why not? Why not make more money? And then July 3rd is X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix. We're going to get the Ivan Ooze and the reattempt to do, the Last Stand out of our system on the 3rd, just in time for everyone to celebrate, the 4th of July for their independence of having to watch those films again.
I will be in San Diego at the time, so I may not be able to be there for that one.
That's okay. That's okay. I can definitely talk crap about them, and it'll also be good for me to go back and watch. My favorite part about those films, I'm going to say this, and I'll say it again back on the 3rd, but I thought that they tease Psylocke, and then she nopes out so quickly at the end of that film. It's hilarious. And then the 10th of July will be Deadpool, and then the 17th of July will be Deadpool 2.
I might be there on the 10th. I'm driving home from Disneyland that day.
Okay. Besides, I can talk about Deadpool. It's a much more fun film. And then of course Deadpool 2 is going to be on the 17th, which we can also mention the whole, Freddie Savage, Once Upon a Deadpool version of the film, which my son has been asking to watch Deadpool, and I'm like, you might get to watch that one.
Look, here's the thing. I could swear that when that was available, maybe I just rented it, but I could swear I bought it. But I can't find it in any digital library I own.
Oh, by the way, Tony made it from a con in Chicago. Just saying, Will.
Look, man, I will be I understand that, but I will potentially be in a small hotel room with both my wife and child. And they may have other plans as well.
Oh yeah.
Like dinner.
There's no pressure. There's no pressure.
Yeah. The family, it's supposed to be my vacation, so it's supposed to be family time.
Yeah, true.
It's supposed to be.
And then I was going to do a special edition of Fandoms the 26th, but honestly, we're just going to do it for the next week. So we'll get a whole week to
that way everybody gets a chance to see it, because
everybody gets a chance to see it.
You're going to see it right away. I'm not going to see it until Sunday. Will I be going to the movie theater to get a popcorn bucket ahead of time? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know.
So, so it's funny. Like I am going to be going to see it at a Regal Cinema, and I don't know what the Regal Cinema's popcorn bucket is going to be, but in theory, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be dropping my wife off at work on that Thursday, and I'm probably going to drive to the nearest AMC, which is like 45 minutes away, to get the popcorn bucket when they open at the AMC. And then I will probably then, when we go to Regal, get whatever popcorn bucket that they have there as well.
I have to admit the popcorn bucket that we saw and talked about prior, those prototypes were interesting. I'm almost bummed in a way that you weren't on Netheads for us to discuss the
I
reveal of the
watched it
popcorn
though. It
bucket.
was fun.
But I will say that Ryan Reynolds obviously delivered on his promise that he made at CinemaCon, that, it's just like, if you thought the Dune bucket was something. But I'm not really sure I'm going to get that one. I mean, I got two.
That's okay.
The last one I got were the Ant-Man ones. I've got
Mhm.
two of those. One of them's down here. The other one's still just sitting up there. And that was a cool one. But, I don't, maybe because it's like a piece of cinema history now, because, this is an outrageous popcorn bucket, man. So I don't know. We shall see. We shall see. I'm
Yeah,
very
and so
tempted.
have you seen the teaser from Regal for
No,
theirs?
no.
So they're doing an exclusive popcorn bucket as well, and it's supposed to be featuring a character that's seen in the film. But again, like they had like this whole TVA thing. They're teasing but not teasing. It personally to me, it looks like Cherry from Pee Wee Herman, like the Pee Wee's Playhouse. Like it does. It looks like a chair. It looks like a chair where like the bottom part is like the popcorn bucket, and then there's like a straw for like the drink. So it's both. I don't know what it is, but it like caused it like it had this thing that rifted like the TVA was preventing them from showing it off for real. And so
Mm.
it's definitely like a tease. Um I've enjoyed a lot of the popcorn. I still got my Love and Thunder one. I've got my Multiverse of Madness one. I got
I actually have to give away my Thor 11 Pop Thunder one. I thought I had one more than I actually did. And you remember, like, I did giveaways. Actually, this is back in the beginning of 2023. Really, really behind on
that's
shipping.
that's terrible.
What?
The popcorn bug is Professor X's wheelchair, maybe.
No, that wouldn't be so bad.
I don't think it's going to be that, but yeah. Go ahead.
Maybe their popcorn bucket will be the Ant-Man with the skull one. So for all the ones that they didn't sell when Quantumania happened, we'll just do a quick little remodel of it, guys.
Yeah, I got one. We ended up getting one. It was right before we went to C2E2. I got one for Donovan. So I did buy two of the Ant-Man popcorn buckets. But one went to Donovan. It's kind of funny though, because the Wakanda Forever bucket was basic, but I liked it. It lights up and it's got Wakanda like glyphs on it and stuff. I got the Marvel's popcorn bucket from Cinemark, and it's literally like the Marvel's logo, but it's like it looks like more like
that's
it
lot
looks like a
better than
trophy.
the Flurkin egg.
But I kind of regret not getting the Flurkin a little bit, just a little bit.
Nah.
And of course, I'm a huge Guardians of the Galaxy fan, so the rocket bucket with the logo, like I don't care if it really didn't look like a prop or anything. I love that thing.
I got that one too. And not to mention, it's got the popcorn area is a place you could store stuff too. So it's a little storing spot. So that's cool.
Oh yeah.
But the whole thing is with the cost of these popcorn buckets, it's got to end. I know that they are trying to find other ways to make money because I'm relatively certain that it's actually the venues, the theaters that get most of the profit from these buckets. So I understand why they're doing it, because they are trying to get money, because let's face it, exhibition is not doing well. There are more people after the pandemic that are just willing to wait. Case in point, The Fall Guy, right? I didn't go see it. In about a month after it came out in theaters, it's already available on Amazon Prime to buy or rent, movies at home. So as a guy who spent a lot of money on his sound system and lighting effects, you really got to get me there. And if it weren't for the fact that this is a rated R movie and I can't take my kid to it, I would be seeing Deadpool and Wolverine on opening day, but I can't. So my wife and I are going to see it Sunday, as long as we can get a babysitter.
That's the other thing. I also think that theater tickets are prohibitively expensive now. I get my tickets from like this discount thing, so it's relatively cheaper than what you pay for at the theater. To pay like a little bit of like a because I'm seeing it in 3D. You have to pay a little bit of an upcharge. So technically, after I used the voucher, it was like $7 for the ticket because I already prepaid for these vouchers ahead of time. Um, but I get it. Like for theaters, and if you don't know this and you're watching, um, movie theaters do not make a profit on those big opening weekends for films. In fact, they only make money on the films really if the movie does really well and it's there for a long period of time because they get more money the longer it's in the theater.
Mhm. Yeah.
But those initial, those big screens where they talk about, oh, this movie's broken records and it's got this many pre-sales and stuff. They don't see any of that. And so they live off of concessions and merchandise basically within, and that's why some of the merchandise is so expensive because there are licensing fees for those merchandises. So those popcorn buckets are expensive because even though they're getting a good bit of profit from it, those studios are still trying to get money off of them for it
Mhm.
because licensing does not come cheap. So there's a lot of that going on. So I get it, and I appreciate supporting local theaters, and I love the idea of it. I think there was more of an incentive for people to go see movies in the theaters when it would be like 3 months before you could actually see it elsewhere. And I think that's the thing. Like the Marvels came out in November. It was released on Disney Plus in like the beginning of January, I think it was.
Yeah, they've got a strict
So
90-day rule, I think, or
yeah,
89
so
days or something. So that's the
yeah,
minimum.
so but I think like the next Disney film is gonna be like 100 days, I think they said.
Mm.
These studios have got they're too worried about stocking their streaming services that they don't understand they're literally killing the box office. So do I think
Well, you
movies
know what? Honestly speaking, though, AMC is helping to kill the box office too, because my movie theater used to be, I don't know if it was an independent or owned by somebody else. It used to be called The Rave. Then it got bought by AMC, became an AMC theater. And I kid you not, in the decade that they owned it, because it was like right after I moved here, the decade that they owned it, they did very little to no improvements or maintenance other than putting in a Dolby Cinema studio.
Mhm.
And it was like when I went to go see Multiverse of Madness, there was a screw up on my tickets. I had to go see the 3D version, and I kid you not, there was a big black smudge the entire movie on the left side of the screen. When I went to go see
Wow.
Endgame, it was focused, it was dimmed, it was a crappy image. The only thing I will go see now is at the Dolby Cinema. Uh,
Yeah.
that I will only see it in that theater locally because it's the only one where it's at least giving me a close to viewing experience as good as I can get at home now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't have a 4K projector, but I do have a 1080p with 3D capability. So, like, I'm still probably one of the few people that love to get 3D like films and 3D media. But you know, I, even that, like, I'm noticing. I don't know if it's this day and time. My computer keeps telling me like something's being connected and disconnected. I don't know what that's all about.
It's telling you to
Um,
wrap up.
Yeah, it is because we're at the 1 hour mark. So yeah, I'm just gonna say this. Like, I was always of the opinion that you know going to movies and stuff wasn't necessary. And I didn't do it for a long, long time. And then of course it was when I got the early screenings for Shang-Chi, and then I saw, and this is a cool thing. If you guys have the ability, go to an aerospace museum that has an IMAX theater. The Udvar Hazy IMAX theater at the Aerospace Museum in Chantilly, Virginia, is enormous. And whenever they do an IMAX film there, it's amazing. I saw Spider-Man No Way Home there, and it is a huge immersive screen, and it's fun.
Hmm.
And so like I still think there's a place for theaters. They just gotta stop. It's like Target says that they're going to start selling things for cheaper because they realize people need to save money. No, stop overcharging for stuff. Stop overcharging for tickets for movies. Stop doing all that stuff, and you'll make more money down the road because
Hmm.
it shouldn't be a luxury. It should be something that anybody and everybody can do.
Yes, I shouldn't have to get a second mortgage or a HELOC in order to go to the movies.
Yep. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and just remind everybody real quick. First of all, to keep the lights on, we've got our merch. Please go ahead and check out our merch store. Lots of different products going on. You can definitely see there. Be sure also to check out our website. You'll find out much news, reviews, and different things on the Nerd Initiative website. Even this show is streaming on the website because it's embedded in the page. You'll also be able to check out the new comic book day reviews that came out even today, because today's new comic book day. Be sure to check out Tuesday, turn a page. The bullpen team will be going on talking about all the stuff in comic books and talking about storylines, doing reviews, even doing some interviews, which has been awesome. There's a lot of stuff. Oh, here we go. Tomorrow we have Wrestling Night Live with Rich. Be sure to get out the new information about all the stuff that's going on pertaining to wrestling. And of course, tomorrow also.
Okay, there you go.
Netheads.
Yeah.
Because on Friday we'll also be doing fandoms, but it's gonna be a lot this week.
You've had so much of me. No, you're gonna get sick of me. It's like, why do I have to keep listening to this chucklehead talk? Why does he keep trying to take over my shows?
Yeah, so I will be over on Netheads with Will tomorrow, talking about all things nerdy, and then we'll be talking about fandoms. We'll be talking fandoms on Friday, which honestly, I'm going to admit it right now, I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Well, I have a funny feeling there might be some discussion of a certain little show that's premiered on Disney Plus.
Which, you know what? I have to watch it still.
Yeah, I last night as I was going to bed, I put it on for a minute because I never know when I lay my head down if I'm going to go right to sleep or if it's going to be a while. And so I put it on and realized, nope, I'm falling asleep. So I got as far as the action that happened before the title card, and that's where I hit pause. So I'm right. I'm with you.
And if you want to know more about the Acolyte, that premiered on Disney Plus, there's also a show that aired right before this one that you go back and check out. It is in the playlist, or it's in whatever in the live section of the YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out. But Will, is there anything else you want to say before we go?
Just apologies for continuously looking to the right because I'm also doing work while we've been talking the whole time, or to the left, or whatever it is. No, I just got a lot to do.
You still don't have your prompter set up, do you?
I hate you.
All right, with that said, everyone, thank you for joining us. Be sure to check us out. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on the Nerd Initiative YouTube, and be able to turn on those notifications so you can be notified when these shows come out. And I believe we already have next week's show in. No, we don't. We will have it scheduled probably by the end of tomorrow.
Yeah, you do.
So with that said, have a wonderful evening, and we're 1 week closer to Deadpool.